So I'm to go out and rescue her, then come back playing the part of a hero.
Or come back, and in a public display, weep bitter tears over her still corpse.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Gundam, the episode-by-episode Gundam Seed podcast, where every week we watch an episode of Gundam Seed and then talk about it and tell Tyler how cool it is. I'm Jeremy.
I pilot the Ground Turtle X-Wing Custom Zero. I'm Tyler.
That's got a lot of adjectives.
It's also the Ground Turtle Wing, so, you know.
My name is Zach.
The Gunpla World Building Contest is actually going right now, and someone built a perfect grade Wing Zero that launches a master grade Wing Zero that launches a high grade Wing Zero.
Wait, how does it do?
It didn't actually win, but it doesn't actually launch, but it's like
What?
sculpted in such a way that like a turducken one's coming out of the other.
What beat that?
Actually, the thing I think is going to win is this really, really cool, like, the piece is meant to look like a statue, but it's a Wing Zero on top of an Epion, and they're grappling, and it's painted so it's clear they're entering the Earth's atmosphere, and, like, the bottom of the Epion is super red, and then it gets progressively less and less red towards the Wing Zero. It just looks incredible.
That sounds pretty sweet.
I think that's going to win. A lot of people think the American one has a chance. I don't really like it, but I think it's the photo. I don't think any photo would do it justice because it's got a lot going on. And then the Japanese winner is a tall geese that's supposed to look really cool, but I couldn't find a picture of that.
Is it illegal to gut the inside of the model and replace it with working robotics?
It has to be stationary.
Oh,
when
so you
you're-
can't
Because
have
it's
it
a model contest.
But what if I made the model an autonomous robot?
You could do that. That would be legal, but you can't be moving as part of the piece.
Okay. So the fact that it can move
Does not disqualify it.
Okay.
But you have to settle on a pose.
that's unfortunate.
Does make posing it real easy, though.
It does.
There are also a lot of unicorn Gundams that have been fused with Master Asia's Horse Gundam to make them unicorns.
Wouldn't that make
I
them
forgot about the
centaurs?
horse Gundam.
Yes, it would.
I was wondered about the horse Gundam. Is there a horse in the mobile trace system?
I think there is. Don't we actually see that, or did I make that up in a dream?
I think you made that up in a dream, because I don't think they ever show you the inside of that mobile suit. It's either implied that it's a robot, pure robot, or that there's something else going on with it, but they never actually explain it.
Can we just discuss for a moment how awesome the technology in G Gundam would be? Because if I could just, like, hook myself up to a suit and walk around, and then the mobile suit walks with me, but they aren't on treadmills, right? So when they're running, how do they not run into the wall of the Gundam?
Notice how they always change to just show you the Gundam when they start moving.
Exactly.
I mean-
Or are they just jogging in place, and they interpreted that as forward motion?
In Iron-Blooded Orphans, they just hook it up to people's minds.
Yeah, and that's probably the more realistic option, but I find it funny that we're discussing jacking directly into someone's brain being the more realistic option.
Someone's been paying attention to my head cannons for stuff. That's how they came up with that.
With what?
Jacking into somebody's brain to control a mech.
Oh, I mean, like, The Matrix?
Not totally me.
Evangelion?
Like, all the stuff that inspired The Matrix? There was a lot of cyberpunk. Actually, Snow Crash?
Never heard of it.
You should read it. You'd probably like it.
I think my favorite thing about the Matrix's influences is Grant Morrison. A lot of people say the Matrix just copied The Invisibles, which is a Grant Morrison comic. And he said, nah, I'm cool with it. I kind of wish I had gotten like a special thanks or something. But what I really wish is they had kept copying me for the second and third movies.
That's fantastic.
So, this week will be watching episode 8 of Gundam Seed, entitled Songstress of the Enemy Forces.
Which is, like, the best title thus far. It's great.
So, we haven't actually released any episodes yet, and it's been a while since we've recorded, so if we're a little off, that's why. Part of that is because all of the episodes of Gundam Seed were on YouTube, so if we said that on any old episodes, and I didn't manage to cut it out, that unfortunately is no longer the case. I'm sure you can find Gundam Seed and watch it along with us, because you're all resourceful people, I'm sure. You found this podcast.
Yeah, and don't they also not produce any physical copies you can buy anymore?
Yeah, it's not currently legally in print. There's been a lot of news saying that's going to not be true soon, but it took them like 3 years after that was announced to get Turna Gundam in print, so who knows when soon is.
It's almost like Riot's trademarked soon.
Yeah. It's like everyone's trademarked soon.
Is Build Fighters still hanging around?
Yeah, Build Fighters is still up there.
I should watch that before they take it down, apparently.
I think the idea is when they upload a new series, they take the one that's been on there longest down. Because Zeta used to be up there, 00 used to be up there.
Okay.
Seems really strange, but I guess it'll encourage people to buy your physical. Oh, wait.
Import it from Japan.
That's probably corporate policy.
Bandai has messed up Gundam in America so bad, is all I'm going to say. So, this episode, we get Lacus Clyne, and we have finally all 3 of the main female characters have had some time, which is cool. This episode also finally passes the Bechdel test. For those of you who don't know, we've talked about it in the past. The Bechdel test is you have to have 2 female characters who talk to each other about something other than men.
I forgot what that test was called. Like when you mentioned Bechdel test, that my brain went, the hell are you talking about?
I can never remember the name of it, but I knew immediately what it was. What scene is this? I mean, I'm sure we'll get to it.
Lacus and Flay talk about the Zaft military and the Earth military and how Lacus isn't part of the...
Yeah, about how
Actual
Zaft
military
is
structure.
Zaft is the
which
name
is
of
really
the
awkward in the
forces, not
dub.
her.
I suppose we'll get to it, but they instead of the word military, they use the word forces, which is
Yeah.
technically correct, but the word military is right there, and it fits those lip flaps.
Yeah, forces and military are kind of the same thing. It's just forces is an awkward word to use.
Yeah, but we'll get there.
Never thought about it, but it is.
I suggest an alternative title for this episode is Flay the Super Racist. So
That's an alternate title for this series. We'll get to that. Before we get into the episode, though, let's talk a bit about the female characters, since this is, I guess, a pretty big episode for 2 of them. It's too bad Kigali is doing F-all for quite a while still.
Which is a shame, because I think she's my favorite female character in
I
the
was
series.
immediately interested in her, and then they shoved her on a bus.
Well, that means you keep having to come back and watch the series till Kigali shows up again.
It's like Princess Leia in Star Wars, only she didn't even get kidnapped by Darth Vader. She just left for a while. And we gotta wait until Han Solo just bumps into her. Athrun is Han Solo, right?
Sure.
I guess Mu is pretty Han Solo, but Mu is also Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he's both.
Although Han
He's a
is
force-using
also
Han Solo.
that is true. So Han is also kind of a mentor figure, so
True.
I would say he's probably just Han. Yeah, he's just more badass Han, which is actually hard to do, so...
All right, so who's your female character, Tyler? Kigali? Because you know nothing about her?
Yeah, honestly, I think Lacus might be my spirit animal, actually, so...
You are pretty stupid.
Yep.
I can't decide. I mean, I love Lacus. I'll just say it. I often wonder if I actually hate Lacus.
Why is that?
For things I don't want to get into. Like, the reason I rewatched the entirety of Gundam Seed right before this podcast was I was trying to settle for myself, is Lacus a good character or not? That was the goal I went into the series with. And I came out with yes, but they could have done a better job with her in a lot of ways.
But now you get another watch through to decide that again.
Yeah, that's true.
Talking about it with us.
And a lot of the problem is what Gundam Seed Destiny does to a lot of these characters.
We could just pretend that Destiny didn't happen until we have to start watching it.
I mean, yeah, that's
I
my plan.
try to pretend Destiny doesn't happen.
The worst is that Destiny looks like it's gonna be good. It tricks you for so long.
I tried to pretend Destiny doesn't happen in a lot of the games. Then Luna Mario shows up and I'm like, I like you. Why is your series so shit?
Same with Shin. Shin is great.
Until all of his character falls out.
Yes.
But that's for another time
Yes.
down the line.
So anything else we want to say, or shall we just jump into the episode?
I mean,
Cannonball!
None of us like Flay, apparently, so...
Flay's a mega racist.
I actually will defend Flay further on in the series because I hated that character the first time I watched this series. And I've really come around on her. I think she's actually a really strong, interesting character, but...
I think she's a strong, interesting character. I just think she's thoroughly unlikable.
Yeah, so the question
Therefore,
is-
I don't like her.
Is being a good character actually someone that you want to know in real life?
I mean, I could fix Flay. I could fix Flay.
I could. I'd probably just shove her off of a moving bus, but...
That's not fixing her. That's breaking her further. She would try to get super revenge on you.
Depends on where you push her out of the bus.
All right, before we begin, since it's been so long, let's recap the series. This episode actually starts with the sort of series overtone thing that they've been skipping the last couple of episodes.
I was actually going to comment on that.
But if for some reason you're just joining us, our hero is Kira Yamato. He's a coordinator, which is like a Captain America.
He has yet to learn his middle name.
He's on the neutral company of Heliopolis because the coordinators are at war with the not coordinators. All the coordinators are on the space colonies. All the not coordinators are on Earth. So Kira's hometown of Heliopolis was blown up by the coordinators, so he got stuck on a Earth Alliance ship, and now he's piloting their only giant robot, fighting his best friend, Athern Zala, who is with the coordinators.
And a bunch of douchebags.
And the whole reason it got blown up is because the Earth forces were building some giant robots there.
And Kigali is off
doing
somewhere.
something.
She's presumably important because we see her in the first episode and then forget about her.
I was going to say presumably because she's got a name, but she doesn't actually get named until later.
Yeah, I only know she's named that because you guys told me, so...
So last episode ended with Kira Yamato finding yet another random space pod and decided he needed to bring that onto the warship. And out fell, floating, far too innocent for this world, Angel Lacus Clyne.
Oh, not Haro?
I think he picked up the life pod because he wanted to make amends for shooting down the Zaft Jin.
Oh, that's absolutely true. He feels super guilty for murdering a guy.
Yeah, bleeding heart.
And so he decided, take a life, save a life. It's like trees, right?
A life given for a life taken.
So out flies Lacus Clyne, and everyone is just staring in awe.
Because everyone's like,
I
why
never
is
realized-
this girl here?
I never realized that in that shot, Maru is just kind of, she's got this blank expression like, I have no idea what I'm doing here when she's looking at him.
Yeah, this is not only a slow episode, this is an episode they didn't so much give to the B animation team as they gave to the W animation team. There are some okay shots, but there are so many just terrible expressions and characters' eyes going all over the place.
I think there's a shot where someone gets cross-eyed at one point.
I think there's more than one.
So something that has just started bugging me about Lacus, she's like the only person who does not have a natural hair color in this show.
So far.
Okay.
Nickel has
Nickel's
green
got
hair.
green hair.
No, that's a natural hair color.
Yeah, it says the green-haired guy.
Exactly.
There's so had to be someone else in the opening with weird hair, maybe. She is a coordinator, so you would think they would be able to...
Genetically engineer pink.
Yeah.
Well, he's got like blue hair.
Yeah, he's
Zach
kind of
has, like,
silvery
gray-blue
blonde.
hair.
That's a weird hair color, but it's not entirely unnatural.
Atherin's
Atherin's
got blue
like,
hair.
blue-purple hair. But you could see that as dark hair with weird highlights.
I had not really ever thought of that, but you're right. Lacus is like one of the only people who has an unusual hair color if there is another one.
And I kind of forgot about Nickel when I made that comment, so...
And she's the manic pixie dream girl. She's supposed to stand out.
Well,
oh, man.
they're much more unusual as opposed to a lot of anime where there's just that guy running around with a random dark hair or random like, pink hair.
Okay, Maru's boobs in that one shot.
bouncy!
I've never really noticed them, but... Has Dan made you watch his favorite random cracked skit, which is... It's like assisted living care for manic pixie dream girls.
No, but that sounds pretty good. All right, so the episode begins with Kira Yamato grabbing Lacus Clyne and dragging her down to our pathetic level as she's just floating through the sky.
Well, she looks so confused.
Well, to be fair, she's just kind of floating in the middle of a bunch of people who are supposed to be her enemies. And wow, that backdrop is terrible of the officers.
And Kira suddenly has a crush.
Yep. Kira
Wouldn't
is
you?
instantly smitten. And Lacus realizes, oh my, this isn't a Zaft ship, is it? And Moog and Nataro go into the land of exasperation, which they will not soon leave. Maybe we should just try to count how many times the officers facepalm in this
One.
episode.
Drinking game. Somebody go get the Jameson.
And so they're just all confused and have no idea what to do. And somehow this is worse than if Zach's bomb threat idea had gone through. So then we cut over to Zaft lands. Where
It's like really ominous when they do it for some reason.
well,
Keep out.
it's because they're the bad guys.
Are they, though? The show is like really into duality, I feel.
It
so.
is, but it's still in some ways a traditional Gundam series, and I think they're trying to make you think they're the bad guys. So since we've got the introduction of Lacus and all the boys have fallen in love, we get some nice Athern in the shower fan service for the girls. He angsts in the shower, you know, just what a nice teenage girl wants. And then comes out to answer the phone and finds out that the launch of his ship has been moved up 2 days, which concerns him a little bit.
35 hours sooner than planned. Seems like a very random number to me. I don't know why.
Well, 3 days minus an hour because Crusade already ate breakfast that morning.
So Athern is kind of confused, but then he turns on the news, and it's the writer didn't want to have to explain this to you channel. So it has the news that Lacus's ship, the Silverwind, has been missing, and no one knows where Lacus Clyne is, which of course worries Atherin because, as we learned last episode, she is his fiancée.
I love that the picture that they use of her is just her looking confused on a blue background.
To be fair, that is kind of her default expression.
You'd think they would have some nice, photo op pictures of her, since she is a pop idol.
Yeah, instead of just the, I'm so lost, what am I doing here picture.
So the officers take Lacus to kind of interrogate / debrief her. She introduces Haro. I believe you have feelings on Haro, Tyler.
I don't know why anyone would ever purchase one of these things. It is so annoying.
Well, spoiler, Lacus did not purchase Haro.
The best Haro...
Okay, really quick. Zach just... Look at her face.
I don't need to.
God.
I told you, this episode was not animated by anyone who cared.
The best Haro I've ever seen actually came out of Doublot, and it was the best thing in Doublot because it tells one of the characters they suck. He does something, and the Haro goes, you suck, you suck.
Okay, so
Great.
even if Lacus didn't buy it for herself, someone bought it for her. Why would you inflict that pain on someone?
Bought?
There is a great fan comic about that I'll have to show
There's
you
two,
after there's a
three.
reveal. Yep.
Take your tally, Tyler.
So just from her introduction, we've got more face palming. Even Moo, who's usually cool with everything, is super exasperated. And the entire crew is trying to listen at the door, except Kira, who's angsting in the background. Natariel comes out to get angry at them. And I want to talk about the dub for a bit, because the dub is mostly good for this series. It's a little up and down. They do something to Natariel's character that I don't really like. And it kind of starts here, where they just kind of make her a huge bitch. She's supposed to be a hard ass, and I get that, but she just something about the direction of her character starting now.
I never really noticed that, personally. I always just kind of felt that she came across as a hard ass, but that's just me.
She comes up like a mother nagging her kids here instead of a officer giving her subordinates orders.
I think I prefer the fact that she seems more like an officer in the dub, giving orders rather than, why are you
Vaguely
not
maternal.
working?
But her
as
lines
opposed to
are
get your asses back in on the job.
Her lines are very similar, though. It's all about tone to me and the way the actor portrays it.
I prefer the way the English one does it, just because I think based on how her character is structured and the arc that she goes through, regardless of the tone from the hard-ass military commander is actually more appropriate.
I don't want to get into her arc because it's spoilery, but for the exact same reason, because of her arc, I prefer the original, where she's a little softer. So everyone runs to work except Kira, who gets waved at by Lacus like they're in school, and
God,
he just does
their
not know what to
face
do.
there.
That is the derpiest expression, too.
And then Moo's face after. So they realize that Lacus's last name is the same as Supreme Chairman Siegel Klein, and Lacus stupid is like, "Oh, do you know my dad?" Which leads to yet another facepalm.
I think this is the only episode in which Moo ever actually looks
Exasperated
with anything Kira does. But this, is one of those, this takes the cake situations. And all the officers
Even
are
Maru
horribly
is like,
confused.
what do I do?
I would be as confused as they are.
So they ask what she's doing out there, and she explains they were going out to the wreckage of Junius 7, which is the colony that exploded that started the war, to prepare for memorial services, but they came across an Earth ship who demanded they be allowed to inspect, and things got sort of out of hand, and it led to fighting, and she was shoved into an escape pod with the Death Star plans.
And the other Earth Forces ship had the life pod is unmanned, don't shoot it down.
There's a Haro in there.
There's a life form on board, don't shoot at it. That could possibly be a main character.
I love Moo's exasperated face, and that it's the standard straight eyebrow face.
So Maru is kind of sympathetic to it. Clearly she's thinks
Maru
this
is a terrible officer.
She's a great mom.
She's a great mom, terrible officer.
Didn't the Earth Forces just last episode, or maybe the episode before, have their own memorial service here?
No.
This ship did.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're the Earth Forces. They're just a very small segment of them.
Yeah, I think this is saying that there are lots of racists in the Earth Forces, which is something we hear often. But this is sort of...
And they've got one on board, too. Her name's Flay.
So then we cut to, 35 hours later with Atherin about to board the Versalius, when he runs into his dad and Rao, who inform Atherin that Lacus is missing and also that a djinn that was searching for her never returned. So things are serious.
Just thinking about the trajectory, because they're floating in space to get to the dock, right? His trajectory, he would have brained himself on the door.
That's okay, he has super reflexes. and he's military trained.
I love these
the line.
officers floating by, just like saluting as they go.
So he's like, man, should we really waste military time, like, searching for it? And Rao's like, come on, man, don't be so cold. You're her fiancé, so we and my team have to help. Also, Nickel and Izak and Diarca fucked up and lost the Archangel, so what else are we gonna do?
Yeah.
So Atherin, because he's not an idiot, pretty quickly realizes, wait, this is all PR. What happens if she's dead? And Raul Crusade has a few different lines depending on your translation.
It's so good.
But yes, no matter what, it's like the smile on his face as he says it makes it. It's like, well, isn't that a great story? It'll super galvanize people. My favorite is, well, then you should just come back screaming like crazy as you clutch her bloody corpse. Is my favorite particular translation, but there have been quite a few.
In the subtitle version, he says, come back with her body and cry like crazy.
Yeah, isn't the English one, then come back clutching her, crying bitter tears over her corpse?
Crying bitter tears over her still corpse or
Look
something
at
like
this
that.
smiling bastard.
The Atherin Raul Crusade relationship is just great, but so is Rare and Chairman Zala, and man, see, Rao in particular is definitely a bad guy.
Yep.
So maybe it's less that the Zaft are neutral and Atherin is just a good person and he's our focal point.
Which I think is kind of the point, but I may be misinterpreting this. Feeling fine, Haro?
Well, and
That
also,
thing is the most annoying thing on the face of the earth.
They're in space.
Anywhere near the planet.
going back to Zaft being evil, I think part of your neutral view on them is I've been kind of emphasizing that. Because I think it's not supposed to be an M. Night Shyamalan, what the twist? But I think they are trying to characterize Zaft a little more than the enemy faction is usually characterized. And that is supposed to be a twist.
I mean, clearly, like, they had the council meeting, and they were clearly trying to, like, use any event to escalate the war.
But there were
Only
also
a couple of them were trying to use any event to escalate, whereas the chairman and a couple of the other council members were trying to find a way to de-escalate the war.
Well, the chairman can't be evil. He's Lacus's dad.
Well, like I said, that's why I specifically stated a few other council members were also trying to de-escalate the war.
Princess Leia has an evil dad.
He's got you there.
But he redeems himself in the end, technically.
Kinda.
All right, so Kira has a flashback to last episode where he shot that Jinn, and he comes to the realization that Zach said was obvious last week, because he's a dumb teenager and has just figured it out, that that Jinn was probably looking for Lacus. Or, if not specifically Lacus, any survivors of the downed ship. And he feels even worse about it.
He's like, man, this whole situation could have been avoided if I hadn't shot that guy, even though it wasn't really my fault that I had to.
Think of all the hand slaps I would have saved. Hand slaps? Think of all that
Facepalming.
face palms I would have saved. So then we cut to the mess hall where Mirialia and Flay are arguing because Mirialia wants Flay to bring food to Lacus and she won't.
Well, it's not like Flay's doing anything to help, so might as well. Whereas Mirialia should be the controller on the bridge, but since Kira's not actively trying to kill anybody...
Basically, she says she's too afraid to go near a coordinator. She says, like, they have super good reflexes and they're super strong, and you can't really tell what they can do just by looking at them. And Mirialia is like, Kira is right there!
He's in the room.
He's standing right there.
She's got, like, spider senses, Mitty.
Although, I like the attention to detail that they use in the shot where Flay is going off on this, and Mirialia is kind of glancing off to the side, like where you would expect Kira to be watching them from.
She's like, are
The
you okay
expression
with
is
this, man?
really bad, but the fact that they did that
This
makes
was
it seem-
storyboarded well. It just wasn't animated
It
very
wasn't
well.
animated very well, but I like the attention to detail that they put in there. Flay's concerned about being attacked by Lacus.
Man, can you imagine Lacus attacking anyone?
Yeah, and even Cuzzy, the dumbest person, is like, man, I can't really imagine her pouncing on anyone. But this actually works both as a pretty good info dump, explaining how powerful coordinators can be, and it's good at expressing both Lacus's character, and it gives us a lens into the people who really don't like coordinators. Since, as we said earlier, they all held a wake, basically, for the people. All the characters we've met so far have been fairly sympathetic.
I'm curious, would that have counted as part of the Bechdel test? Because they were talking about Mirialia and Flay were talking about coordinators, not directly about Kira.
You could argue it. The Bechdel test is really a spiritual test, and it's not actually worth anything.
Yep.
Two girls can talk about shoes in a random scene, and it passes.
The Bechdel test is named after a scene in a webcomic.
I was just
So-
curious.
And also, Alien doesn't technically pass the Bechdel test, but no one is going to say Alien doesn't have good feminist themes.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I would say it does.
Because like you said, it's kind of a squidgy test.
And Flay was like, you don't know for sure she wouldn't attack me. So then, with perfect timing, as Flay says she might be really strong, we hear, hey, who's this really strong person you're talking about? From the softest voice ever, and Flay and Haro are in the mess hall.
You mean Lacus and Haro?
Yes.
Technically,
And
that is the weirdest. The set of expressions when they all realize who's standing there. Again, the animation thing. But I think those expressions make up
I was
for
gonna
some
say,
of the other ones. They actually look like appropriate reaction points.
they actually spent some time on it, and it's really good faces.
I love, like, how did they even let her out? Didn't she just ask?
We'll get to that.
So then we cut to commercial. We have the nice eye catch. On that dramatic, oh no, there's a pink-haired girl in the mess hall. Because not much happens this episode. Hey guys, it's me, Jeremy, and this time I'm not alone, awkwardly talking to myself, retaking everything 6 times, and then editing together, so I sound like a real human.
I don't understand why this is a problem for you, because it sounds wonderful to me.
That's
Why?
what 10 minutes of editing does, Tyler. Introduce yourselves.
Hey, I'm Tyler. I'm on the podcast you're listening to right now.
We did that on the podcast, but okay, fine. I'm Zach. I'm here.
Your
Hi.
future Tyler and Zach.
That is true. I'm like 3 years older. I was mentioning stuff that happened when I worked at Time Warner Cable, guys. That's how long it's been.
Oh, I'm still working at the same place. That depresses that. Well, I guess it doesn't really depress me. I kind of like where I work.
I mean, a lot of people work places longer than 2 years. I feel like I'm an exception to that rule.
All right, so we're all together to read some emails that we got.
Yeah, if you have been paying attention to the ad spots, I'm not even sure if that's what to call them, the in-between the eye-catch things.
I mean, that would normally be where a lot of ads would be.
Look, if Visa wants to sponsor us, that's where their ad's going.
Visa, it's everywhere you want an ad spot. We're running a contest to give away some free Gundam-related merch if you send us an email or tweet at us at LTOV Gundam.
That explains those boxes.
I'm very confused, Zach.
The boxes in my basement full of prizes.
I thought there was the boxes that showed up at Zach's house mysteriously.
That's something else.
So we have a few emails we decided to read. We have 3 entries right now. So if you decide to enter into this contest, your odds of winning are actually very good.
Yeah, because Ed wanted to recuse himself from eligibility, but he's also one of our 3 entrants right now, so...
So the first email comes from Edgar, and it says, Dear Total Strangers, I, a complete stranger, having listened to the first episode of your podcast, am writing to you as someone who totally does not know any/all of you. I like your podcast, thanks Ed, and it has motivated me to finally watch Gundam Seed. I hope you enjoy that 50 episodes, and then stop. Do not pass go. Do not watch Gundam Seed Destiny.
But also keep listening to our podcast where we watch Gundam Seed Destiny.
We'll take that bullet for you. I like this guy. He sounds nice.
Below are my thoughts as I watch the first episode. I don't know if I'm going to read all of these or just some of them.
No, you should read all
Okay.
of them, and then you can just edit it later.
I love the orbital insertion opening, especially the photos tucked on the consoles. And were there Zoids shown during that opening narration? Yes, Ed, there were Zoids.
Were they...
I'm pretty sure there are some Bakus in the opening.
Yeah, I was going to say, were there Bakus in the opening? I don't remember that.
In the very first episode, I think there's some desert shots, but it's been a while.
Birdie is just a pale imitation of Haro.
Oh,
Don't
just
worry.
wait.
You have no idea.
Why are the colonies 1 light week from Earth? Pluto orbits at about 1 light hour from the sun. There's interference, Ed. Minovsky particles.
Yeah, it's that light actually travels slower in the solar system these days.
Calling it now, before the first commercial break. This mysterious blonde girl waiting for the professor is masked villain's sister.
Nope.
Wrong.
Nope. I was closer, I think, with my guess of the whole Star Wars relationship.
So, that's going to be it from not Ed wearing a Groucho Marx mustache. Thanks, Ed. It actually does mean a lot to us. So why don't you read one we got from Last Time on Video Games listener Ryan. You should also be cool and go listen to Last Time on Video Games like Ryan does.
Hi, Ryan.
That's true. We made a new podcast, and Ryan, who is, as far as I'm aware, the only person we don't know personally who listens to Last Time on Video Games.
He's following us. This is awesome. We have we've got a baked-in listener.
Thanks, Brian, for being an awesome guy.
Yes, very much so.
Ryan says that since we solicited for comments on our new podcast, he would tell us what he thought about it. He said he listened to the first 5 episodes and watched the first 5 episodes of the show, and his thoughts are, it's okay. Apparently he's not a huge mecha fan, even though he really liked Evangelion, but arguably that's only barely a mecha anime.
That's an anime about a relationship with 2 people that cannot work because neither has any self-esteem. And sometimes they get in giant robots.
Evangelion's kind of a weird side case.
Ray and Ray's other clone?
Yes.
Is that who we're
Yes.
talking about?
No, Shinji and Asuka. Shinji and anybody, but Shinji and Asuka.
Has anybody else here seen the rebooted Evangelion?
I've seen 2 out of 3 now. The third one's the weird one.
Is it the second one or the third one where you actually get Asuka the space pirate?
That's the third one.
Okay.
What? Space Pirate Asuka? Okay, we're gonna move along here because this is a conversation that can happen later. Apparently, he never watched Toonami growing up, which is a damn shame, even though it was apparently available in the far-off land of Canada. Apparently, they showed a lot of stuff unedited there because he talked to some of his friends, and apparently they showed Ninja Scroll with no editing.
Yeah, Sailor Moon
Wow.
was less edited up there too. And they got all of Gundam Seed Destiny, whereas we got none of it.
Ryan
I think
said-
that's a fair trade.
Well, Ryan thinks this is a decent podcast, and we appreciate that, Ryan. I asked him to tell us if there's anything he wants us to improve on, but also we have episodes to get to before we can take that as actionable advice. But thanks, Ryan. You're a cool guy. You're like literally the only person who ever contacts us, so thanks for that.
It is nice to hear from you.
And last but not least, we have one from Tommy, which just says, I found It's a Gundam a few days ago, and I really like and will continue to listen. So thank you, Tommy.
We very much appreciate the listening.
On the other hand, I will also point out that the subject of his email was new fan and contest entry.
It says plus.
Oh, does it say plus?
Yeah, new fan, plus.
Remember, you can always hang out with us on the Discord channel for Last Time on Video Games. This is kind of the same place, too.
Or if you're in Colorado and Zach isn't your favorite host, then you can hang out with some of us as well. I'm just assuming you don't want to hang out with random strangers, Zach. So,
All right, so if you want to enter our contest that we keep mentioning it, so these 3 guys aren't the winners. We are giving away a Freedom Gundam Model Kit, Master Grade 2.0.
I looked
a
it
very
up
nice
today.
model.
It's very good.
Yes, there's a problem with the hip joints. Some of them break, so you have to be a little careful, but it's a very good model. We're also giving away Gundam the 08th MS Team, 1 copy on Blu-ray and 1 copy on DVD.
Which might be my favorite Gundam series.
It is really good. My main problem with it is kind of short.
So if you want to enter, you just have to send an email to Gundam@LastTimeOnVideoGames, like these guys did. .com, obviously. It's an email address. You can also enter by sending a tweet with the hashtag Gundam Podcast. No one has done that yet. And now that we're on Apple Podcasts, there's a third way to enter. If you leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, we'll also enter you in the contest.
But we're not taking submissions over the Discord chat, okay? So don't contact us on Discord and try and enter that way.
No, that sounds awesome. I'll take it.
If you want to get to our Discord, there's a link on our website, lastpodcast.com, which is also where you can find Last Time on Video Games. It's a cool podcast. We talked about Stonekeep this week. Maybe don't listen to that one. All right, but we've taken up enough of your time. Send us those emails if you want them read aloud and you want to win a cool model kit. And we will see you then.
Bye!
So then we cut to the bridge, and it's Mu and Maru talking. And again, I don't really like the way this is dubbed, because Mu is kind of being goofy and flirty in the original version, which is just kind of weirdly cut in the English version. He just has a really awkward line because his lip flaps are awkward, so they have to fit them. So anyway, Maru doesn't want to have to hand Lacus over because things will be tough for her even though she's a civilian. And the Tarl challenges are on that, bringing up that they're using a bunch of civilians in the war anyway. And Tal and Sai, who are on the bridge, are just kind of overhearing this. Again, it highlights the differences between Maru and Natarl. Natarl is a lot more tactical. Maru is a bit of a bleeding heart.
Maru is a terrible officer. Natarl is actually a good officer.
Yeah, Maru should probably not be captain of this ship. All things
She
considered.
should really not be captain of this ship. She is because she happened to be the senior officer on scene when the whole shit hit the fan.
And Mu doesn't want to be.
Yeah, say Mu
Yeah.
technically outranks her, but
Well, technically you could go with he's a fighter pilot, so he might actually fall under a different section.
She's a mechanic.
Okay, that is
I'm a
fair.
mechanic, not a spaceship captain.
So we cut back to the mess hall, and Lacus apologizes for leaving, but she says she's super hungry and thirsty. And they're like, "What? But you can't just leave." And she's like, "Well, I tried to ask for permission, but no one answered me. Too innocent for this world." Flay is freaking
I
out.
love her face here.
Maybe the bad animation actually helps out because it makes Flay look really freaked out instead of just, like, concerned.
They all just have the perfect confused expressions. That was the one thing that the guys who animated this were really good at, was confused expressions.
Flay says she doesn't want to eat with anyone from Zaft, and she explains she's not actually from Zaft, because that's the name of the military. Like we said earlier, the English dub uses the word forces for no discernible reason. And Lack is like, "Yeah, we're the same, you and I. You're not wearing a military uniform, so you're not in the military either." And Flay takes super offense to this, even though she's absolutely right.
no one sitting in the mess hall at the time is part of the military.
But they're all wearing uniforms, so she has no reason to assume that.
Well, I guess technically Mirialia and Cuzzy did sign on.
Not yet.
No, they did. Earlier on, they actually did sign on. They mentioned that they volunteered.
Well, that's not the same as signing on. Like, they haven't been officially processed.
So anyway, Flay makes a very dramatic statement about not wanting to be friendly with the coordinator, and everything goes sepia tone again.
It includes a close-up of her face and everything.
So my theory is that when Kira has a romantic crisis, the world goes sepia tone. It happened when he saw Athrun running at him, and now it's happened when Flay, who he has a major crush on, has displayed he doesn't like coordinator. And we all remember what it's like to be a teenage boy and for the girl you like to be dating someone else. You see the world in sepia tone for a second.
Does Kira know that Lacus is Athrun's fiance?
Not yet.
We'll get to that.
I mean, this is setting up so much relationship angst. It's gonna be great. The entire world's gonna be sepia tone for an entire episode.
The love dodecahedron.
Who told you
of
about
Seed
that
is
episode?
great. And you got Hasai hanging off the side of it because he and Flay are technically together. Tal and Mirialia are just like, well, we're happy together, so we're
Screw
going
all
to
you
stay
people.
far away from that. So Kira takes the meal and starts escorting Lacus back to her room. Mirialia, Flay, and Cuzzy are still in the mess hall. Things are very awkward. And Cuzzy asks Flay if she's a member of Blue Cosmos.
Which is basically the Ku Klux Klan against coordinators.
Well, currently it is a proper noun that hasn't been explained, but it's pretty easy to extrapolate what they are from context.
Yeah, if Tyler can extrapolate that having not seen anything, that's pretty good. Flay says, no, but it's not like I don't believe what they say.
I just haven't gotten a membership card yet. They cost like $15.
Those white hoods are so not
No, they're
fashionable.
Wouldn't it? Yeah, they'd be blue hoods.
because of the Blue Cosmos.
In particular, she says that this is another line with a lot of translations. I don't like the one the sub used. But basically she says, man, it's weird to get like genetic manipulation if you're not sick or something. Which is not something I necessarily agree with, but is at least a viewpoint I can understand.
Well, and the other two characters in the room sitting with her.
Well,
Just kind of like,
after she asks if they thought that she was right. You know, that
neither
kind
of
of
them
phrasing.
respond. So
Yeah.
Again, this is pretty well done. Clearly everyone it's the guy who wants not to be racist, but is kind of afraid they are. And it's not just racism, they do have Captain America powers, which would be scary if you were born into a world where some people
have Captain America
Could lift a
powers
car
and you don't.
and throw them around like they
and
were
one-hand
toys.
hack an operating system together in the space of 20 seconds while fighting off a mobile suit.
After
with a
having never
knife.
actually been in them in their life.
Yeah. So Lacus doesn't want to have to stay in the room, but Kira's like, yeah, you should. And Lacus is just kind of like, but it's lonely.
What about Haro?
She's just very clearly a social person, unlike Kira. Kira's like, yeah, lots of racists on the Orthverses. So yeah, you should just stay here. And, Lacus exposes her, oh man, peace is good. And she says, yeah, you're kind, so thanks for that.
Actually, it's just because he's a terrible shot.
And then he's basically like, I'm only kind because I'm a coordinator, although he does blush a little bit, which is hilarious.
And Lacus, very nicely, because Kira needs encouragement, because Mu is an old man and no one cares. Lacus is like, yeah, but you're kind because you're kind, not because you're a coordinator. Again, establishing her as too perfect for this world. So meanwhile, we cut to the bridge, and the Archangel is starting to get a transmission. It's all garbledy-garble, but it's a transmission. Then we get some filler scenes.
With the
Because-
civilian crew, and we needed time to fill 20 minutes, so here's some still shots.
Yeah, the awkward looks between Cuzzy and Flay, I think, actually work, but like Mirialia and Tal talking for no reason just kind of falls flat. Anyway, the transmissions are from an Earth Forces fleet, which is nearby and looking for them, and so the crew finally has something to celebrate. Which, after 8 episodes of tension and panic and
And filler.
being afraid of being murdered, there's something good. So they all decide to party.
Party! Break out the Jameson!
They don't have any booze. They don't even have enough water. But
They do now. Well, they just raided a destroyed colony.
know how they
Telling me
could
no one
sterilize that?
took whiskey?
boiling it,
Wow.
space future methods.
I was going to say making alcohol out of it, but
So Sai comes up to Kira and's like, hey, I'll talk to Flay. Don't worry about it. But then they start walking away and they hear Lacus singing, and Sai has this pretty good comment about like, oh, it's a pretty voice, but I wonder if it's genetically modified, which is again another really good, like, subtly kind of racist thing to say. That's, very realistic. He definitely doesn't realize it. He doesn't need it as anything bad. But Kira, who's super concerned about everything and self-conscious,
Well, it does
is sort
kind
of taken aback by
It
it.
does make you kind of wonder if a lot of that kind of conversation with being around Kira, if that would actually bother him if they hadn't found themselves in this situation where it's very much more pronounced coordinators and naturals. If he'd mentioned that before they got involved.
If they mentioned it before, Kira probably would have been in the corner being quiet, though.
True.
So then they do that awkward anime thing where they flash back to like 5 seconds ago and they finish the conversation that Kira and Lacus had been having.
And that's where we actually find out that she told him he's nice because he's nice, not because he's a coordinator.
Oh man, did you see Kira's face right before it cut over to her talking?
Yes.
That was so bad.
I've watched this episode a lot because we almost recorded this episode on a lot of days. Trust me, I've seen every animation gaffe. There are so many. So now Kira finds himself in a nice Betty and Veronica situation with super too good for this world magical Lacus and Flay, who's already dating someone and a horrible person. But the heart wants what the heart wants.
And sometimes the heart wants money.
Flay isn't even rich, is she? I guess she kind of is.
Veronica.
Yes.
But
Lacus is also rich, so...
Yeah.
so Lacus is like Betty, but also rich.
Yes.
So.
So finally, Cuzzy and Flay have another meaningful exchange of dialogue, where Cuzzy is just like, hey, just keep in mind Kira is a coordinator, and that has actually saved our lives a bunch, and is kind of great, even if it's a little scary. And Cuzzy gets some character development here, which is cool. It'll never happen again.
And he gets to be the mature one, which, as Jeremy said, he'll never get more character development. Well, actually, there is a couple of moments later when he gets something, but
Yes.
it's not a lot.
So cut over to the Bridge of the Versalius, where you have good old Raul Le Creuset hanging out with Addis, and they detect a bunch of Earth Forces ships, presumably the same ones that contacted the Archangel. And they, because Raul is super smart, put together that they've come to meet the Archangel for some reason. And he decides to follow them because he's not going to let history make fun of him because he was looking for some girl and let a chance like this just slip by and lose the war.
And turns out he's doing both at the same time without knowing it.
Yep.
Nah, he knows it.
Well, we have seen some crazy leaps of logic on Raul's part, but...
Man, that's gotta be lonely. Atherin's just kind of hanging out in the ready room all alone.
No, that's how he likes it. He enjoys his angsting.
Yeah, he's like Batman.
I am darkness. I am the night.
So anyway, all the refugees on the Archangel are excited about the escort coming, and we find out Flay's dad is one of the captains of one of the ships.
No, he's not one of the captains. He's not actually a military guy. He's like a senator.
Okay, well, we don't find out. We find out for some reason Flay's dad is on one of the ships.
I thought they mentioned earlier in the episode, or early in the series, that he was a senator, not actually a military.
I don't think they have mentioned him at all before now. So Kira and Murdoch have a nice little chat where Murdoch's like, yeah, I fixed up the strike a little bit, but you're probably never going to have to use it again. So,
Damn it,
but I want you to
Murdoch.
check it.
Never say stuff like that. You'll jinx us.
So we end with Haro and Lacus, and Lacus asks man, I wonder where we're going, which is supposed to be innocent, but in a way I almost wonder if it's trying to play off that she's kind of a spy, except for because we've seen the other side, we know that's absolutely not the case.
To me, it implies a slightly higher level of cognizance than she's been afforded so far. Like, she's asking a pretty good question, even if there's no one around to answer.
One major debate among Gundam Seed fans is Lacus stupid early on and gets smart later? Or is she just pretending to be a naive idiot and then she stops pretending at some point?
I think it's far more likely that she's been pretending for this entire time. Like, she's got a little bit of naivete, but she actually drops that later, but she's far smarter than she acts.
I mean, given what she does later, I agree, but I really didn't get that impression the first time. It seems like Tyler does, though.
I definitely did not get that impression the first time I watched it.
My problem is no one is that impossibly naive. It must be a facade. So
It's anime. I would totally believe it.
yeah, this is a kind of serious anime, though, so...
So are some of the other ones I've watched. You wouldn't believe how stupid people can get.
So that's the episode. Really, really slow one. We got some good character development, mostly on the part of Flay. We get Lacus's character, a little bit from Kira and Sai, some subtle racism stuff. Not quite as skippable as, say, episode 6, but not a great point in the series either.
6 is the
6 is the
Escape
asteroid
from
one.
Artemis.
Yeah. Unlike episode 4, which was a slow episode but really set up the next big fight episode, this one doesn't do anything to set it up, but next week is a big blowout. But before that, how about we start doing high points and low points on this show? Because that's the thing episode by episode podcasts do.
Totally. Although, really quick, I would like to count, there were only 4 facepalms in that entire episode.
Okay, but they're very dense.
Yeah, they all happen clustered right next to each other.
Move facepalms like twice in a 3-minute period.
Although Moo seems the face-palming sort, so he's done it even not on this episode.
But even Natarl, who is super
Yeah,
serious
that's the
business lady, has reached her limit.
I loved that episode where they're all in the hotel room together. It was so good.
Or she's super confused
Yeah.
at the plan. That is the only redeeming feature of episode 6.
So, Tyler, what is your high point for this episode?
For this episode, actually probably the point where Flay's screaming about how she doesn't want to be friends with the coordinator. I don't know. Says a lot about the character. It says a lot about the Earth forces, I think, generally.
Zach, what's your high point?
I would agree with him. Either that or move
Agreeing with
facepalming.
him is cheating. Choose something else.
Then move facepalming.
Moo does facepalm a lot. I think my high point is Lacus. Like I said, I go back and forth on whether I love her or not, but I have priced Lacus Clyne statues on more than one occasion. I guess I haven't bought one yet, which says something. But also I have plans to paint up a Lacus Clyne custom Freedom Gundam.
I love her outfit, honestly. I think it's like...
I don't.
It's impractical.
She
but
has
it's
3
great.
outfits in this series. I really don't like this one. The shoulders just really bug me.
Huh.
I don't like her hairstyle with the second one, but it's a pretty minor quibble, and I really like the third one. What's your low point, Tyler?
Honestly, probably the awkward conversation she has with Kira.
Really? I actually
Yeah.
kind of like that. Giving Kira a little bit of a boost.
I know, I'm having a hard time thinking of a particular low point in this episode, because it's mostly that the low point for this episode would just be boring, which means I don't really remember it, if it exists.
Well, I have one, which is the awful animation. There are so many,
yeah.
cross-eyed and, just off things.
Super
They make
derpy
Lacus look
episode.
ugly a few times, and I don't know how you do that. But also just, Moo being cross-eyed and lots of dumb stuff. Zach?
The weird silent conversations of the bridge crew that are
Yeah.
just acting as filler for the middle 3 minutes.
Yeah, oh man, we didn't have enough in this episode. We have to...
Actually, so
Stretch it.
you commented against this where Meriaria and Toll are, talking to each other in the hallway. I actually really like that because it implies she's basically gossiping about what just happened in the lunchroom.
That is true. And
Yeah,
that is what you would do with your boyfriend.
I mean, they may never follow up on it later, but I actually liked that little bit.
But,
So,
you could have given her some dialogue.
yes, you could have.
Well,
I
the English dub does, and it's terrible dialogue.
actually kind of like the fact that you can't hear it because who knows what she's saying. Is she being extremely judgmental? Is she just, reporting only the facts? Are they talking about a sandwich they had earlier that day? You don't know.
Don't you think it's awesome we've got water now?
Yeah. I like to think she's actually being extremely judgmental of Flay there, but...
Probably, given that she was judgmental to her face.
Yes.
All right. So, anything else we want to say about this episode? Like I said, a slow one. Usually the slow ones are pretty good, but this one really
one was
feels
kinda
like they need to stretch it.
And the animation quality really hurt it.
Yeah, well, it's probably a budget-saving episode, is almost certainly what it is.
Probably, yeah.
Well, I noticed there were a couple... I forget what scene it was, but they reused the same, Oh no, as while they were in the room with Lacus discussing the fact that she was Senator Clyne's daughter, they reused the same shot of, God, I can't remember her name. Black-haired lady.
Nataro?
Thank you. Nataro and, Maru.
Maru?
Thank you. Yes.
Not everything has a Japanese accent over it, Tyler.
How do they actually say it?
Maru.
Do they?
Yeah, and the dub they definitely do. I'm trying to think of how they say it.
But they have the same scene of them in the same shot, 4 times.
Well, they have the same shot of Nataro coming around on the bridge.
At
least
I
twice.
didn't notice that.
Mhm. Coming up from the backside, they use that shot twice.
And they reused the Kira and Lacus talking scene, or at least...
They
a bit of it.
outright reuse the scene.
So yeah, kind of a weak episode, but I promise the next one has at least more explosions. Join us next week for episode 9, Fading Light.
Bye.
Clyne, did you say? You have the same surname as the current Zaft Supreme Council Chairman, Siegel Clyne.
Oh yes, Siegel Clyne happens to be my father. You don't know him, do you?